When I go SUVing, there's one thing I like to combine: the ruggedness of off-road and heck, enough room on the inside for the family. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is one such contender, the 2016 Nissan Pathfinder. Even better, this particular model is four-wheel drive. Looking at the exterior of the Pathfinder, first thing you'll notice is really the less truckish and beefy look that a lot of SUVs tended to be years ago. Now we got more of a sleek design. Now, are they starting to mirror more of a minivan-esque style? Possibly a little bit of a crossover blend. Now, what you're gonna notice first here on the Pathfinder, very sleek body lines. Also, this high-waisted midline I've mentioned before. Now, I'm starting to get used to this. It's not as bad as I once thought. Now, as you sweep down the different accents on this particular model, this is four-wheel drive, you're gonna notice these black accents right around the window. One thing they do here is combine it with the chrome. Now, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that, but it's not too bad. You got the chrome here and in the lower portion. Now, what I prefer, since this is off-road, is really get rid of this and keep the lower black fascia. Looking at the four corners, what you're going to see here is the standard 18-inch wheels. Now, this is the SL model just below the Platinum. Now, the Platinum will upgrade to 20-inch versions. Now, I do prefer really what we see here, because once you go to 20, possibly too much bling. Now, as for ground clearance, this is four-wheel drive, but it has somewhat of a minimum ground clearance, around about 7 inches. Other vehicles are really going to creep into the 8 and 9 inch, giving you a lot more lift than what you see here. Last thing is about the overall weight. This coming in around just under 6,000 pounds, so it's got a little bit of beef, but it definitely adds the fact that we have that third row. When you look at the overall numbers, the vehicle measures in about 197 inches with that wheelbase stretched about 114. Now, by those numbers, it puts it just above the mid-size SUV market and just below the fuller size offerings, but it is just big enough to fit that third row. Now, another thing to think about is with that low ground clearance, we're going to have decent step in height, really in the front about 1 inch less than the back. Now, the reason for that is you do have a slight elevation in that second row. One thing I always talk about really is grille warfare. That's the first thing people see when you're going down the road. Now, while a lot of SUVs are delivering a huge beefy front end, this a little bit more modest. Now, where it starts is with the nosing really of the front end, and you see a lot of bling. To me, maybe just a little too much. Contrasted with this black insert and of course the Nissan emblem in between. Now, the rest of it is body color. And we have a little bit of fascia, but it's really tucked under this nosing up here. One other nice feature though is the added safety up here. This nice sensors, and you do have cameras at the front and the back. Now, besides the camera at the front and in the back, you also have them here on the side. Now, what that does is give you that surround view. Now, at low speeds, specifically when you're in reverse, they automatically come on. But should you need them to come on, you just press that button. It's going to give you that view in those tight spots. Now, as you sweep down the side, one thing I do like is the fact that we have the fill up here on the driver's side. Because after all, do passengers kick in when it comes to fill up? No, they don't. Even better is it coordinates with the keyless system. Now, what that does is when the vehicle's locked, this is locked. When you unlock it, it is nice and unsecure, really making it easy to get inside. One thing to note, a lot of vehicles going with the capless system. Here, the old school version, got to twist it off. Some SUVs offer a lot of options when it comes to the power plant, but here on the Pathfinder, well, just one, a V6, specifically a 3.5 liter. Now, it's going to deliver modest horsepower, around about 260 and 240 foot-pounds of torque. Now, what does that mean at the end of the day? Well, a little bit of roar when you hit the gas and eventual get up and go. Swing around to the business end of any SUV, really the cargo area. Now, before we dive inside, let's talk about a little bit of the operation. Now, we do have the spoiler, kind of the only sport you're going to find here on the Pathfinder. Now, the good old days of a pop-up glass really falling by the wayside, instead a fixed glass. Now, it really going to limit you with long items coming out of here, something I wish a lot of SUVs would go back to. Now, again, we have the backup sensors here, able to kind of minimize any dings and scrapes, obviously with that there. Now, even better, when you get down low, we do have the towing capability. Now, this engine is a V6, not going to deliver a ton of towing capacity, but not bad, around about 5,000 pounds. Now, let's look at the cargo. Looking at the cargo area, what you're going to find is decent cargo capacity. Now, average sedan, somewhere around about 14 cubic feet. Here, definitely better, but we'll see that in just a second. Now climbing inside, what we're going to notice here is we have a power lift hatch. So much easier. Even better is you do have some locking mechanism. The way it works is there's a little button here to raise the hatch. Beside it is a lock and unlock button. Now what you do is you press that and do whatever you want to access the vehicle. Now when you want to access the cargo, simply press that. It's going to rise to the occasion. Now it is somewhat fast, so you definitely want to stay out of the way. Now once this is open, what you're going to see is around about 16 cubic feet of space. Now that's pretty good considering this is 3 rows, and typically you're going to find about half of that on some SUVs. Now when you look at the split back here with the 3rd row, you're going to see a 50-50, room for 2 occupants. What you're also going to see is these huge headrests. Now those are somewhat of a blind spot, making it a little bit more difficult when you look back. But again, you have that surround view, so it's not that big a deal. One thing you can do when there's no one back here, simply pull on this and they're going to tumble out of the way. One thing that's great with any cargo area really is the extra room under the floor, and they have that right here. Now what's great is it's actually hinged for the top, really staying in place, so you don't have to worry about moving out of the way or holding it in place. Now what you do see is a nice cavern down here, and you also see that nice Bose subwoofer. Now what it's going to do is allow you to have a place for some items you leave in here all the time. Now when you look at the back seats, these are easy to fold down. You got the headrest down like this, simply pull this handle here and it's going to tumble forward. Now that's going to easily double the amount of cargo just behind the 2nd row. Now as you lay all of them flat, that's going to give you just under 80 cubic feet. I thought it'd be fitting to start right here in the back seat, because this is really what I've talked about on this vehicle, the 3rd row and the ability to carry more people. Now the first place you want to look at is the overall comfort. What you're going to notice is really the seat bottom is positioned right there on the floor. Now what does that mean is the knees are going to be positioned somewhat high. Now by the numbers, you're about 30 inches back here. Now it's going to be somewhat anemic, but what's great is with the seating down low, your knees up high, you actually have a little bit of knee room between the seat back and your knees. Now you can accommodate a little bit more room by sliding the 2nd row forward just a hair. One thing to note in this vehicle really is the amount of headroom, and when you look up, this nice huge moonroof. Now what's great is you do have a shade that you can put in place to prevent all the lighting. Now it doesn't open up, but it does offer all this light that comes inside. Now when you look at the accommodations back here, what you're going to find is 2 cup holders for the right passenger and 2 more over here. Now again, there's only room for 2 back here, but it still offers total room of 7 people. Looking at the 2nd row and the leg room, what you're going to see is around about 41 inches. Now that's pretty decent considering the front row is only about 1 inch more. Now what you're also going to find is a split bench seat here, around about 60-40. Now what's great with that is the ability to kind of accommodate cargo and people. Now when it comes to ingress, it is somewhat easy. Now the way it works is there's a handle here on the side. Now when you pull that, it's going to tumble forward. You're actually going to raise the seat bottom. That's the first step. Second step, simply grab this slider down here. It's going to pull forward. Now that's easily going to give you nice ingress into the back. Now once you're back there, you're going to slide this back into place, put it back, flip it down. Now what's great again with the ability to move this 2nd row, it's going to accommodate more leg room. Again, with 41 inches here, I think there's about 3 inches of play that you can lend to the back. Climbing into the front seats, what you're going to notice is really the overall comfort when it comes to the SL model. Now this has a lot of leather throughout and really comfort up front. Now these are power adjustable. One thing to note here for the driver is there's no memory settings. What I found is, heck, for each driver, you're going to have to move it back and forth. It really won't return to its place with just the press of a button. When you look at the center of the dash, first thing it's going to take notice really is this oversized screen. Now this is something we saw in the Infiniti models, and this one is a nice decent stretch from you. Now it is touchscreen if you want it, but the likelihood is you're really going to use all the controls on the dash. Now one thing I noticed on the Infinitis, and this one just the same, is the navigation is positioned up high. Now again, I don't use this on a daily basis. Specifically, most people know where they're going, so what I would like is this again positioned down low and actually bring the entertainment up higher, because what you're going to find with Infiniti and Nissans is they have no real home screen. Instead, you're going to use the quadrants down below. Now when you look at the entertainment, pretty much straightforward, a little bit old school with all the selection buttons you have here. A lot of vehicles really taking all this and putting it on the touchscreen. Now when you scroll even further, what you're going to notice is what I would like is the dual zones. You have dual temperatures for the front driver and passenger, and the fan speed, again, somewhat straightforward. Looking between the front driver and passenger, what you're going to find is a nice, huge, oversized console, nice elbow support. One thing you're also going to notice is these tabs. Now, I've never really noticed these, but these are actually labeled, I guess, just so you can make it easier. Now, I'm not going to be able to read these while I'm going down the road, so it really comes down to memorizing. Now, the upper obviously means the upper portion, so you can put some storage here, close it, hit the lower, and that's going to give you this section down here. Now, this has a little bit of connectivity here, a USB, and actually some good old video connections here, and a power supply. Looking at the gauges, pretty much going to be straightforward analog tach and speedometer with a little bit of a readout in between. Now, that's a little bit old school. Like to see a little bit more technology here with a digital display. Looking down low on the dash, you'll find a whole bunch of other buttons that may take a little bit of memorizing versus looking down while you're driving. Now, one thing I like is the heated steering control, but I don't like where they position the button. Now, it does for this edition Road Warrior on a test drive behind the wheel of the 2016 Nissan Pathfinder, and it delivered two things well, the four-wheel drive and that third row for occupants. Now, one thing I was a little bit short on was the power under the hood with only that V6 option, delivering around about 5,000 pounds of towing. Now, as always, we'd like to thank you for watching this edition Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.